G'day, welcome back to the channel and another news report about the hobby, flying of drones and model aircraft, the good things, the bad things, all the stuff that's happened in the last few days. And we start, of course, with one of those horror stories where a terrifying drone near miss at Leeds Bradford Airport made the pilot duck in fear. Oh, the bloody snowflakes, flying jets. No, but seriously, it's another one of these stories that drone misses airliner. I mean, that's a story. It happens every day, but let's take a look. It's the Mirror. It's a bit of a tabloid, so, you can't really believe too much of what they publish. And this is that they trawl through the AirProx reports, which are like reports made to the aviation regulator when pilots believe that they've been endangered or come in close contact or near to some other aircraft or drone. And this one an airliner came so close to hitting a drone that the pilot ducked because it feared it would smash through his cockpit window. A report has revealed, and the terrifying near miss happened as the Boeing 737 plane, believed to be operated by Jet2, was at a height of between 300 and 500 feet while coming into land at Leeds Bradford Airport. So, on approach, which means airspeed 200 miles an hour, he had time to see this drone and duck. Yeah. Anyway, again, it's another non-event, another non-incident. And engineers who examined the plane after it landed found no sign of damage, including that it had not been indicating that it had not been hit by a drone. And it is believed the drone operator was never traced. Now, excuse me just for a moment, but didn't the regulators tell us you must register your drones because it will enable us to track down the operators who are doing bad things? Well, hang on a minute. Drone registration does not seem to have solved this problem, does it? And it is one of the closest ever recorded near misses between a drone and an airliner in UK airspace. Although I do believe back in about 2006, they claimed that a drone came within 10 feet of an airliner at night. And the Mirror reported that as well. It's bullshit. It's all rubbish. Anyway, I see they have comments here. Let's see comments. Is there a comment on this? Oh, here we go. This is why the media is doing our hobby such a disservice. These drones need to be outlawed to the public. They are very dangerous, with an E on the end, in the wrong hands. Only the armed forces should be allowed them so that they can kill innocent civilians. No, I'm sorry, I made that bit up. But seriously, this is why we must push back. Push back when the media makes these ridiculous horror stories, this sensationalist drivel that they want to get people, they just want to get eyes on these damn ads all over the page. This is the problem we face. And you'll recall that there was a story published by Newsy, and I did a video about it, and I pushed back. I went to their Twitter feed and I went to their Facebook page. Here is the Facebook page for Newsy, and I posted this. Dear Newsy, I'm going to call you on this story. It is largely based on hysteria and misinformation. After reading your own journalism ethics guidelines document, I request that you honour the promises given in that document and strive to respond to legitimate questions about your reporting and stories in a timely manner. Please watch this video and admit that your facts are wrong. You have woefully breached your own standards, which say a story should be more than technically accurate. The overall tone, information and treatment should reflect the facts. Deadline and platform are no excuse for inaccuracy. Now, I posted this and I expected, this was nearly 3 days ago I posted this. I expected Newsy would honour its own statements, which I've quoted in here, come back in a timely fashion and respond and correct the errors. But no. And in fact, this comment got 5 likes from people that I don't immediately recognise, but as with that Mirror story, people are lapping this up. They're believing this rubbish. They're saying, well, they're already here. The cartel's been using them for years. Finally, it's not like they can't be hacked, right? And it's, seriously. So I went to my community tab on my channel here, and I posted this. If you're a Facebook user, go to Newsy's Facebook page and give them a piece of your mind about their poor standards of news reporting on the subject of drones. Check my latest video for more, and then go and comment here. And I gave a link to that Facebook page so people could go and hammer them, tell them that it's not acceptable to misrepresent the facts like this, to be true to their own published guidelines and ethics document, which they're not being. I put a follow-up on this, a little pinned post saying, and get anyone else you know to likewise criticize Newsy on their Facebook page over this, unless we, as a hobby, voice our concerns and outrage in a very loud and unified voice, then we are lost. Let this be the first step in a very concerted campaign of setting the record straight whenever the mainstream media spread disinformation and hysteria like this. Spread the call as far and wide as you can on your social media platforms. Let's rally the brave. Now, I would have thought I would have got people lining up to do this. But it's very interesting to see here. There's so many levels to this whole discussion, because as you saw on the Newsy page, I didn't get in, no one else commented. 5 people liked, but no one else made a comment here to protect our hobby from these ridiculously poor standards of journalism. Journalism, right? No one rose to the rallying cry that I gave out. And I only got 7 likes on this community tab post. 7 likes. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because normally I get much more than that. In fact, can I go back here? Let's have a look. Have I got that? What are my other posts? See, this one had 207 likes. This one only had 15, but 214, 250. I usually get a couple of hundred likes, but 7 likes on this post. Why did nobody like this? Why did nobody follow through and go to the Facebook page for Newsy and give them a piece of their mind? I think it's probably because nobody saw this post. Although it was over 2 days ago, nobody got to see this rallying cry, because YouTube is looking after its corporate friends. It's mainstream media. The mainstream media is YouTube's biggest friend. They want them on board because they make lots of content and it's already basically ready to go. And so we are being throttled by the very medium we're choosing to use. YouTube is saying, no, not having it. YouTube used to be YouTube for content creators. Now it's YouTube for the mainstream media. And that's the problem. That's the fight we've got. It's very difficult for us to get the word out, which means we have to push all the harder to do so. And I'm here making as much noise as I can. YouTube's trying to throttle me, obviously. They don't want people giving the mainstream media a hard time. But the thing is, who is Newsy anyway? I went to Wikipedia and took a look. So according to Wikipedia, this is Newsy. It's an American news network headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, and owned by the EW Scripps Company. Its content is distributed on OTT platforms, including Pluto TV, the Roku channel, Zumo, Samsung TV Plus, in addition to streaming devices, blah, blah, blah. And most importantly, down here it says, as of November 2021, Newsy has current and pending affiliation agreements with 132 television stations in over 100 television markets, encompassing 46 states, covering 81.21% of the United States. So a lot of people read this dross, and a lot of people believe it. As we've seen, they just lap it up, they believe it, and if we don't fight back and we don't set the record straight, then we are done for. We're doomed. The hobby is doomed because, as you saw in the comment on that Mirror article, people believe it, and they think we're evil and drones should be restricted only to the military. And where's my rallying cries fall on deaf ears, or they just don't get out there? We need to be more organised. We need to be far more organised. Whenever one of these crappy news stories appear, we must en masse complain and shout loud, long and hard, and have our voice heard, or the public will just believe what they're told, which is absolute dross. Before we criticise drone flies too much, let's look at the mainstream hobby. Another story, it's a different tack on things. Now, the traditional hobby, a lot of the people in the traditional hobby, the ones who fly nitro trainers around fields and in circles every day, they've been bitching at the drone community. Oh, they're the ones responsible for all these rules and regulations, because until drones came along, we didn't have these problems. Well, if this story from the Register is to be believed, I think the mainstream hobby, the traditional hobby, has to basically start taking responsibility for some of the problems it causes. And this is a great example. Now, as I say, if we can believe the story, because again, we're dealing with media here. There could be flaws, there could be complete falsehoods in this, but let's assume that what they say is correct. Apparently, a radio-controlled model crashed into a truck park. And this is what happened. Now, it was a scale model of a World War II training aircraft, the T-6 Harvard. It was a traditional model built of wood, balsa wood, and powered by an internal combustion engine, 1.7 meter wingspan, so it was not a small model. It wasn't a foamy, it wasn't a sub 250. It was a model, if it hit you in the face, it would ruin your day, right? So these models require quite a bit of extra care and attention when you're flying them. They are the traditional hobby. And so let's read what it says. It says here, the scaled down Harvard, a model of a World War II training airplane, smashed into the curtain trailer's side after its operator lost contact with the aircraft. It says, instead of staying in the circuit at the Model Club's flying field, the 1.7 metre wooden aircraft maintained a straight and level attitude in a northeasterly direction at approximately half throttle until meeting its end at the Fradley Distribution Centre. So this is a internal combustion powered model. The pilot claims he lost control and it just continued flying until it reached this truck park, smacked into the side of a truck trailer. So now you'd think, what happened? Well, the aircraft operator, I wasn't very happy. This is what he claims. It was suspected by the pilot that 2.4 gigahertz jamming devices were being operated by some of the companies at the distribution centre to prevent staff from using mobile telephones. That's what he told the Air Accident Investigation Branch. Now, this doesn't have much of a ring of truth to it to me. For a start, mobile phones use 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G frequencies, which are not 2.4 gigahertz. Now, they do use 2.4 gigahertz for Wi-Fi connectivity. But if you were running a business and you didn't want your staff using their phones to surf the net, you'd simply not give them the password to the Wi-Fi network. It would make much more sense than using an illegal radio jammer. And in fact, if we go down to the bottom here, there's a comment that says, while the operator told investigators he thought 2.4 gigahertz jammers were in use, which meant his model stopped responding to control inputs and flew away from the field, the authority was told no such devices were in operation, adding that their use would be a criminal offence under the Wireless Telegraphy Act. So let's investigate what's really going on here. We have a internal combustion engine powered model aircraft of quite significant size and probably quite significant weight, flew away from the pilot and crashed into a truck. So my first question is, why did this aircraft not have the fail-safe set on the radio control equipment? Fail-safe is there for a reason. And in the case of an internal combustion engine model, fail-safe should be set to either cut the throttle to idle or simply cut the motor completely so that the model is not going to continue flying far away from the flying field. In fact, what it should do is it should crash within the defined flight area, so no other third parties are endangered. This did not happen, so the pilot failed to set his fail-safe. And if this was a model flying club, one would assume it was affiliated to the British BMFA, equivalent of the AMA in the USA, which has guidelines and rules over how you must fly. And one of the things I'm pretty sure they would include is you must make sure your model has a working fail-safe, certainly a model of that size. Then there's the other element. Let's assume for a moment that there were 2.4 gigahertz radio jammers operating in that area. That would have been reflected in the range test that was conducted before the first flight of the day. And now I've got to, like everyone else, if I'm flying a little 250-gram foam model, I don't do a range test unless I think there's something wrong. Because the consequences of that model crashing into a grassy field are zero. But if you're flying a 1.7 metre model with an internal combustion engine, then your range test is pretty important, and you should always do that, at least before the first flight of the day. So if there were radio jammers operating, the range test would have failed and the pilot would have known. So I can only deduce from this report that A, he didn't do a range test, and B, he didn't have his fail-safe set. So if what we read here is correct, the entire responsibility for this rests with the traditional model flyer who simply didn't do his job properly, didn't do his pre-flights, didn't do his tests. So whenever traditional hobbyists say, oh, it's the drone flies, well, no, remember, everybody has a responsibility to fly safely, and that includes people flying internal combustion engine powered models in a grassy field miles from anywhere, because obviously if you don't have your fail-safe set, that miles from anywhere may not be enough to prevent your model from damaging other people's property or even worse, causing injury or death. So it's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call to the traditional hobby. This report should be taken very seriously. I think the BMFA should be sending a note out to all its members saying, don't let you be this stupid guy who did this. Now, something very interesting from a lawyer who is actually involved in the RDQ action against the FAA over remote ID, from Jonathan Ruprecht. He published this story on SUAS News. And it seems that the registration numbers for drones have taken a huge plummeting. Look at that, they've fallen dramatically from 1.8 million down to 800,000. That's like half, dropped by half or so. Yeah. Why is this? Well, it seems that they're measuring them somewhat differently now. Previously, this number was the total number of drone registrations, or actually, don't say drone registrations. It's user registrations, isn't it? In America, unless you're flying under Part 107, it is the user that registers, not the drone. So the total number of people who registered was 1.8 million. Now it's down to 800,000. So what has happened? What has happened here? They're measuring differently. This is the number of currently active registrations. This is the total number of registrations that have occurred. So you can see, I think a lot of people haven't renewed their drone registrations. I think a lot of people have said, I'm getting out of here. This is too tough, too hard. Or they've said, damn it all, I'm just going to go outlaw. Well, either way, this is not good news. This is not good news. This dramatic, precipitous drop shows that the bad things are happening within our hobby. And that's just, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. And it's our own fault because we're not protecting ourselves from the drastic overreach, regulatory overreach that's being thrust upon us because people read these sensationalist news stories and they lobby their politicians. You've got to control these evil drones before people die. And that's why we are today. We've got to fight back, people. We've got to fight back. And to show just how bad it is, let's just get rid of that thing. The man who went into space with William Shatner is dead. He's dead. He died in a plane crash. He wasn't hit by a drone, just died in a plane crash. And this is what I say to regulators. Please focus on the real dangers associated with aviation. It's not drones. It's not as of the time I make this video, the death toll associated with the recreational use of multi-rotor drones is 0. It has always been 0, and it's likely to stay that way for quite some time. Yet, almost every day we read headlines like this: someone's killed in a plane crash. So FAA, CIA, CASA, Transport Canada, you need to be focusing on these issues, the real issues, the ones that are costing lives. People playing with toys in parks are not the threat that you claim them to be. It's people hauling their little meaty lumps up into the sky above the ground. It's always going to be more dangerous. And people die. We've got mid-air collisions between manned aircraft causing deaths on far too regular basis. Yet you're not requiring that all manned aircraft have ADS-B when flying in Class G airspace. However, drones, you've got to have a ADS-B, or you've got to have a remote ID in your drone. Reasons? Safety. No, it doesn't make sense. The facts betray the lies that we're being presented with. And even the CASA thing, I did the story on CASA saying that you have to be 16 to fly a model aircraft or a drone unsupervised in Australia to get the necessary credentials. As was pointed out to me, in Australia, you can go solo in a glider, full-size glider, flying a manned aircraft yourself solo at the age of 15. But you can't fly a model of that glider solo at the same age. Seriously, this shows just how out of whack things are. In America, you can fly an ultralight without training, without registration, without license, perfectly legal. But if you build a 251-gram model of that same ultralight, you've got to register. You've got to sit a trust exam. Really, how do these people justify these massive regulatory overreaches, and why aren't we pushing back as a hobby? We're getting walked all over. Today I'm feeling really quite down by the way that people are just sitting there apathetic, totally apathetic, not fighting back against this misinformation in the mainstream media, not pushing back against what is obviously massive regulatory overreach. We're just taking it, lying down, and the result of that will be no hobby for our grandkids or their kids or their kids. That's it. We're going to lose this. It is a fight. It is a battle. And if no one's prepared to step up to the plate, it's lost before we even set out. Please, people, reassure me that at least somebody gives as much of a damn as I do. Otherwise, I'm just wasting my time. I'll take up stamp collecting if it's going to be easier. I don't know, but there you go. What can I say? And just before I go, let's take a look at that journalism ethics guidelines document that Scripps published for the Newsy website. They make a lot of honesty. They make a lot of claims and they do not follow up. They do not follow through. These are lies. If the mainstream media is going to lie about its ethics and its principles, you know they're going to lie about the stories they publish. I mean, I don't know. Honesty. It's the integrity of our journalism is built on our ethical behaviour and the reliability of our reporting. Well, there is no reliability. You've published misinformation and you have refused to acknowledge or correct it. It's glaringly obvious that this is just, absolutely unreasonable. And then they say, we strive to respond to legitimate questions about our reporting of stories in a timely manner. I think 3 days is more than enough time, given this short cycle of news that we have within the news industry. It is, I'm sorry, that's totally unacceptable. And they say, we make every effort to fact check and verify what a source has told us. Well, they didn't fact check the threshold for registration, did they? And even when it's pointed out to them, they do not correct it. And accuracy, a journalist's job is not only to convey the information that is correct, but to put that information in a meaningful context. A story should be more than technically accurate. The overall tone, information, treatment should reflect the facts. Well, in the case of that drone story, that is exactly the thing that didn't happen. It's hysteria, hyperbole, and misinformation. You're in breach of your own ethics guidelines. And this is good. Corrections. We take all requests for clarification or corrections seriously. All errors in our reporting must be reported to a manager immediately. If the error has legal consequences, our legal team will be involved. And then it says, we correct or clarify errors promptly, prominently, and transparently. Bullshit. Have you ever read more bullshit than this? They were informed about this 3 days ago. Still on their website. Still has the misinformation. Still has the errors. This is utter lies, and this is the mainstream media for us. We cannot trust them 1 inch. We must hold their feet to the flames every second of every day. If we don't, we're lost. Anyway, I've whined on enough about that. It's just terrible, unbelievable. I throw my hands up. Thanks for watching, and thanks to my Patreon supporters. You make it possible for me to continue this battle, even if it's single-handedly. I'm not giving up, even if others appear to have done exactly that. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.